So again, there's so many different causes for lower back pain and stiffness, but I'm just going to go over the few most common muscle imbalances that are seen with lower back pain and stiffness. So since we stretched out those hip flexors because they were super overactive, that means we got to wake up the glutes. So we have the glute medius, minimus, and maximus. The maximus muscle does that hip extension, which is lifting those glutes off the ground, and then the medius and minimus do the external rotation or the hip abduction, which is when my knees come apart at the top of the movement. Those two muscles are going to be working. So you want to make sure your core is super tight. You don't want any hyperextension of the lower back when you lift off the ground. So you want your shoulders, hips, and knees to be in a nice straight line at the top of the movement. And what you're going to do at the top is spread those knees apart, keeping both feet firmly planted on the ground. So you're going to squeeze those glutes to lift off, keep that core super tight, feet planted, and spread those knees apart. Okay, so you're going to do 10 reps, and then you're going to take a 1 minute rest, and you're going to do that 2 times. So 10 reps, 2 sets with a 1 minute rest in between. Next, we're going to be working our core, and specifically our transverse abdominis, which is that deep core stabilizer that helps keep us upright. To do this, we're going to be doing a dead bug. So the biggest thing when you're doing this is you want to make sure that lower back is pressed into the ground the whole time. As you extend your legs like I'm showing here, it's naturally going to want to come off the ground, but that's the point of this exercise is you want to fight that arching of the lower back and you want to keep that core super engaged. So you can do 10 reps of 2 sets of this with a 1 minute rest in between. You can either do this variation or, as I'm going to show in a second right now, you can either use your one leg and then the opposite arm. You can extend those both at the same time, keeping that back pressed into the ground. So again, 10 reps of 2 sets with a 1 minute rest in between. Next, we're going to take a look at the rotator cuff. So the muscles in specific that we're going to be working are your teres minor, infraspinatus, and then your posterior delt. So what you're going to do is you're going to attach a resistance band onto like a sturdy surface that's about shoulder height. So what you want to do then is holding on to the resistance band, you want your knuckles facing forward, and the biggest thing is you want to keep that wrist nice and strong the whole time. So it's your rotator cuff doing the movement, not your wrist pulling that resistance band back. So keeping that wrist locked in place, what you're going to do is from the elbow, you're just going to use that as a pivot point, and you're going to squeeze your upper back to do this movement, okay? So you want to keep your core super tight during this. You don't want to cheat at all. You want everything to be a nice strict movement. So again, you can see that my wrist is staying super straight and I'm keeping that knuckle in the same spot the whole time with that resistance band. So even on the downward movement, you really want to make sure that you're keeping it nice and controlled and you're not just letting that arm fall back down onto the bench, okay? So you're going to do 10 reps on both sides. Then you're going to take a 1 minute break and you're going to do this for 2 sets in total. Next, we're going to get into some hamstring strengthening. So what you want to do is get a little mini resistance band. And if you don't have access to a resistance band, that's totally okay. You can also do it body weight, and you just have to really focus on like that mind-muscle connection. So what you're going to do is you're going to lie in a prone position. So you're going to lay on your tummy, and then you're just going to have your arms in a nice comfortable position. I just rested my head on them because my carpet is kind of scratchy. So what you want to do is really make sure that you have that core engaged, and you want it to be lying flat on the ground, and you also want to make sure both hips are being pressed into the ground even as you're bending that knee. So from here, what you're going to do with that resistance band wrapped around your ankles, you also want a relatively light resistance band depending on where you're at in your fitness journey. So what you're going to do is you're just going to bend that knee, making sure that that hip stays firmly against the ground, and you want to slowly lower that leg back down. Don't just let it drop. Try to fight the resistance band as it wants to force you down. So what you're going to do is you're going to do 10 on each leg, and then you'll take a 1 minute rest in between, and then you're going to get into your second set. So you're going to do 2 sets of 10 reps with a 1 minute rest in between.